With me today, our second guest from over the pond, Alison Heppenstall. Welcome to the show, Alison.
Hi, Lucas. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Well, as we discussed, you wear a couple of different hats in the association world, Alison. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those hats and what's been keeping you busy?
Thanks, Lucas. And just for reference, I'm not always over the pond. Most of the time, I'm in the UK. You've just caught me. You've caught me in the summer period while
all
working
over the
from
map,
Australia.
as we've discussed. Australia, US, UK.
Yeah, I know. So I wear two hats. I'm managing director of a company called B2B, and we specialize in working with membership organizations to help them grow, change, have more impact. We've got a consulting offer. We develop partnerships. I've got a full 360 business development sales team that work with membership organizations to generate revenue and build partnerships. And we also deliver training mainly in the area of sponsorship, business development, strategic partnerships, etc. So that's really cool. And B2B is pretty old. We were established in 2007, 2008, thereabouts. In fact, I think someone wished me happy birthday on LinkedIn today. And I was like, and I realized it was the company that they were talking about. So that's great. And we work with lots of membership organizations, typically trade bodies and professional bodies, to help them grow, change, have more impact, generate revenue. We're a real values-based organization. So all of our clients are not-for-profits. And then the second hat is, and it's a result of the work that we've done at B2B, is I'm founder and managing director of a company called Climate Action for Associations, CAFA for short, does what it says on the tin. We support membership organizations to accelerate climate action, take more proactive leadership. And we do that in two ways. We help membership organizations to tackle their own emissions, so to report on their own emissions, be more sustainable. And we also help them to provide the support and guidance and solutions that their members are increasingly needing to accelerate climate action as well. And the background to that was B2B. If you're interested, I can tell you.
I am. Actually, that was going to be my first question is, B2B
exactly.
founding, you don't just sort of walk into that type of model for associations. There needs to be some background that leads you towards the understanding of why this model even needs to be in existence.
100%. And I'm just, for the record, I'm not an environmentalist, but increasingly, learning on, it's like anything, isn't it? The more and more you spend with all these different bodies and on a specialist subject, the more you learn. But for the record, I'm not a scientist or environmentalist. But so what happened was I've got a really good story for you. Around 2015, we were asked by the Carbon Trust, who are quite a well-known environmental not-for-profit in the UK and increasingly global. We got asked by them to help them generate revenue so they could reinvest back into delivering on their mission, to reduce business and industry emissions. And they work with governments, businesses, etc. And they asked us to help them almost like reorganize what they were doing for the public and private sector and help them generate revenue through events and other means. And that was great. And in order to work for them, we had to go through their small business sustainability toolkit. And at the time we were like, oh, this is a pain, because we've got to fill out a form. But that was the only way we could work for them. They were very clear. Their policy of having us as a supplier with them was to do this. And I'm telling you, Lucas, within a year, this is back in 2015, so this was way before the pandemic. We got rid of all of our paper, which meant we were completely digital, which meant we got rid of all of our big PCs, etc. We became laptop friendly. And within a year and a half, 2-year period, we didn't need our office anymore. So within 18 months, we probably saved about, I'm going to be, exposing us here, but we probably saved about £50,000 in terms of rent and printing and paper, etc., which of course we could invest in people.
Right.
So worked for the Carbon Trust. Then we ended up working for the climate group to help them reorganize their business programs and their states and regions initiative, which is called the Under 2 Coalition, to help them structure it more like a membership. We did some great projects, some great work with them. But it was whilst working with them that we were like, there's a real role. Why aren't membership organizations doing more to accelerate climate action and to tackle the climate emergency and be more aligned with the Paris Agreement? And we asked both Carbon Trust and the Climate Group, why don't you service membership organizations, etc.? And they were both like, well, that's your area of specialism. You should do that. And we're like, oh, okay. Well, let's just do it.
Right.
And I'm never one to back out of an opportunity or say no to a challenge, etc. So I thought, okay, so what do we need to put in place? So in 2020, actually, when the pandemic did hit, what I did when I got locked down in Australia for 18 months, as well as leading B2B still from Australia and managing the team from afar, we also set up Climate Action for Associations. And we do exactly that. Our entire mission, well, my big moonshot is actually to decarbonize the entire membership sector. That would be really exciting for me. How are we going to do that? The way we do that is to help membership organizations themselves to become more sustainable, ideally put plans in place to reduce emissions and to reach net zero over a period of time. But where they will have the biggest impact is obviously for us to help them to be able to support their members, to be able to implement things, put plans in place, do things differently, to be more sustainable and ultimately to reduce their emissions and accelerate climate action. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, we're 3 and a bit years in now, and we have CAFA. You can join CAFA. So membership organizations join us to be part of a collective. So it's like a peer group piece that we've got going on. But we also have a certified net zero program of support that we deliver as well.
And are they individual members that are joining CAFA, or is the organization itself, the association, joining CAFA?
It's the associations that are joining CAFA, which is really great because depending on what associations are tending to do now, and I'm not sure if you're hearing much like where you're based and across your network, but more and more are developing like an internal working group, maybe 2-3 people, because they won't necessarily be big enough or yet be prioritizing sustainability and climate action as ready to employ someone specifically to do that. Right. So of course we can help them. But what they're doing is there'll be 2 or 3 people from across the business, if they're that big, who are coming together as almost like a little mini working group, which is great for us because it might be someone who's responsible for events, which is a big emitting area for membership organizations, someone in finance because they can collect the data around where they spend, what they're spending on, the supply chain, etc. And then if they do have an office, if they are not fully working from home, then someone who's responsible for like operations, facilities, building, whoever that might be. It could be the PA to the chief exec, it could be the chief exec themselves, or it could actually be a genuine FM person if the organization is that big.
Somebody's got to carry the flag. I love that story, Allison, partly because it started with, what I imagined is you all sitting sort of when you go to the doctor's office and they give you these forms and you have to fill them out and you say, oh, this is painful, right? And you're filling out all these forms and checking these boxes to be able to do this work. And ultimately what I heard blossom from that was an awareness and education about all of these sustainability efforts that are available, and you all just started adopting them, and it kind of snowballed into CAFA, which is now 100%. A global organization.
I know. It was really quite an amazing process. And I, we didn't have anyone who was leading this for us. I literally had to nominate our team exec at the time. And I literally said to her, and she laughs to this day because she's off doing a high-flying job now, but she laughs to this day that one of the first things that I gave her when she started the job was, one of your KPIs is that we have to be paperless in 12 months. And she was like, yeah, all right, I'm doing that. It was like a total go-getter. And she didn't just, and help us to do that. I mean, everything associated with it, from like, you get rid of your printer cartridges, literally everything. So it was a really interesting experience. And I'm glad that, well, obviously I'm glad now, because it's like a stepping stone, isn't it? Is it like this in every aspect of business, isn't it? One thing leads to another, to another, to another. That's why you say yes to, pretty much everything, because you just don't know where it's going to lead you. But going through that process with the Carbon Trust, and then working with them for a few years, and then going on to work with their climate group, and then using what we were learning while we were working with them to inform ourselves, but also to start to feed in to the biggest sustainability projects that we've been working on, and ESG projects we've been working on with clients at B2B. So we're B2B, this was kind of like a tiny bit of an overlap in terms of activity. The B2B, increasingly we're being asked to help membership organizations to map out their like net zero hubs or sustainability programs, and how they're going to use that as a member engagement tool, for recruitment tool, etc., because they know that their members are increasingly needing to increase skills in this area, or they need to be educated, etc. So yeah, and just step by step, really. And with CAFA, I've got a dedicated net zero team. So we do have environmentalists in the team who are working now with membership organizations on a very strict program that we've created specifically for membership organizations to reduce their emissions. Put proper, clear plans in place. So we're pretty proud of it.
You should be. I want to come back. I want to come back to that more actionable piece and putting the plan in place in a second. But I don't want to miss. We just kind of breezed by what I would call an A-level leadership strategy that you implemented. And again, you just sort of rolled it off the tongue as if you should do it. But you assigned somebody, going back to the captain, if you will, of, you said, I want this person to be in charge of our office doing zero paper by when. And I think that was it was perfect. You assign somebody, I'm a big advocate of it. You assign somebody, you set a goal and a KPI, and you set a date. Those are three really important things. If you really want something as an association, or really any organization to get done, you have to have those key pieces in place, not only for clarity and communication about what needs to be accomplished, but accountability. And so I just wanted to point that out. But now we can go back to the action plan, because what I also heard is, maybe, is it as simple, and I don't want to oversimplify it because it's not simple, is it as simple as creating more awareness for the membership about what could be with these actionable efforts, just as you all did through your process of discovery?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. I mean, first of all, it starts off with just a basic commitment. Like, it's a bit like we're going to go paper. You don't have to even necessarily be that specific. Like, we are committing to reducing our emissions and being a more sustainable organization. What does that mean? It fundamentally means you have to work as a team to decide and communicate that really clearly internally. And you don't have to from day one, you don't have to make a ridiculous net zero target announcement like a lot of people do. Like, we're going to be net zero by 27, and have no idea how to get there. It's more about having a plan in place, as small as that plan is, but telling people that that's what you're going to do. Because again, accountability is really important. And then taking practical, logical steps. And part of that is genuinely putting policies in place. This is how we're going to travel to and from work. This is how we expect you to behave in the office. This is what we're going to do with our rubbish, with recycling. Some membership organizations in the UK are closing, and it's probably got a lot to do with there's a lot of home working going on as well, but close their office for like a day a week, like permanently closed, like lights off, switched off, like and it's like they're not necessarily adopting a 4-day work week, but there's a four-day option in the office week. The 5th day is a definite work from home. Obviously there's lots of talk around consumption, not just in terms of energy and energy efficiency, but also in terms of food and beverage as well. So there's just some basics that can be implemented. And for us, part of our CAFA climate commitment, which is what we ask membership organizations to do when they become part of our network, is also committing to engaging with their members on issues as well. So to whatever extent the support is, but just start with something. So actually recognizing the impact that your members are having on the environment as well. And if you don't know, do some research, ask them, really try and get under the skin of what the environmental impact is of the industry or the profession that your membership represents.
What are some of the things, because I start to think about, okay, here are all the tactical things that we could start to tell our staff at the association, or we could start to tell the members to do: turn off the lights, reduce the water, do all these things that sound very tactically sustaining for the organization, for the environment, for the what have you. But if we zoom out, because I'm also a big fan of I need to communicate to people why we're doing this. What are some of the bigger whys as to associations that they're sharing with their members or their staff?
The bigger whys?
Yeah. Why should I turn off the lights?
Well, I don't know how much you read how much you get in the news and where you're from, but it's one of the biggest on repeat is around the where we are, actually in the middle of a climate emergency, and we're all doomed. So there's that, yeah. But how do we make that real for people? Well, I think for membership organizations in particular, most of them not-for-profits with a purpose, social purpose, written in articles of associations or their constitution, that there is a necessity to act on behalf of their members. And quite often in the UK, there's a social good or a public good piece written in there. So if nothing else, there is a duty of care or a level of responsibility that membership organizations, I don't know how you could have for social public good written into your articles and then not do a diddly squat about climate, So I feel like fundamentally is there alignment between their own purpose. And so for me, and increasingly the work that we're doing is that integrating sustainability into a total business strategy. Not just about environmental. What does total sustainability mean? And the climate and the emissions reduction piece falls part of that. In the same way that inclusion and diversity is now part of strategy at its core, for me, sustainability needs to follow suit with that. So there is the purpose. Do members expect it as well? So there's a why there. Ultimately, is leading by example, taking proactive climate leadership. Ultimately, are the members of the membership body going to start putting pressure on and asking, where's the policy on this? Where's the support on that? Why can't you provide guidance in this area? We need to reduce our emissions across our industry, etc. Could you help us? And membership organizations, the majority at the moment, we're doing some research at the moment. I'm not sure if I can add links into the bottom of wherever you share this ultimately, but we've got an open survey at
Absolutely.
the moment where we're looking to see how many membership organizations are actually taking proactive steps in this area. Our last survey had less than 18% who were actually proactively leading their members to do something. So we're really hoping, like a year on, that's increased somewhat.
There's also, I believe, a greater sense of value to the association itself if it is leading the charge. As we talked about, there's an entire generation or two that have moved the needle in that direction in a big way, and in leading how they purchase things, how the economics of the globe are shifting based on a brand being in line with these type of things, the association fitting exactly into that brand momentum, being I want to support this at least in part, the network, and this is my industry, and you advocate, but also there's a do-good factor that I want to be a part of. And I think that adds value to these associations that take part.
Yeah, no, it does, absolutely. But I would say that there was a trend, and it's dying down a little bit, but there was a trend that an association thought or felt that if it promoted an initiative around planting trees, or helping out in some I don't know what they're called in the US, but like farmers' gardens or planting whatever, then that would be enough from a sustainability perspective. And half the time the tree schemes, etc., aren't necessarily verified anyway. There's a big backlash around greenwashing in relation to all of that. So I'm not suggesting don't promote and work with your members. Particularly, lots of membership organizations have volunteers, and there's a lot of community schemes which are all amazing, etc. Just be really careful of and do a lot of research to make sure that the offsetting or the tree planting schemes or whatever it is that you might be looking at are genuine and verified, and that the impact is definitely being made in the right direction.
Yeah, important disclaimer: we're not saying planting trees is a bad thing, but
no, absolutely.
But be careful with what you promote as your goodwill to the industry or to the world, as you want it to be something you could really firm ground that you can stand on. Before the show, we had an opportunity to chat, and you used the term influencer sandwich in this context. And so explain to our audience that term. I'd not heard that, but I thought it was great.
Yeah, well, it's one that we made up actually as part of, we contributed to, CAFA is an accelerator for the UN-backed Race to Zero, which we're really proud of. For those that don't know, the Race to Zero campaign is a big collective of organizations who are working their way through a series of steps to become net zero. And it's an amazing campaign. Look it up. But they produce a lot of guidance, and we supported them to create a guide on climate policy earlier this year. And we were looking specifically at the role of membership organizations, or actually I think we're called representative organizations in that guidebook. So the influence sandwich is all about the policies that membership organizations put in place. So one is the internal ones with staff, with volunteers, with their boards, councils, etc. So expectation around that from a climate perspective. Are we 1.5 aligned as an organization, and what is it that we need to do? So there's that internal transition plan that we've just been touching on. Sure. Then there is the policies that they put in place to, what is their expectation of their members in relation to the industry or profession that they're working in. And then there's obviously the policy and the advocacy piece that they're doing to represent their members' pro-climate policies to government. So those that are making the policy, putting policies in place, legislation, regulation, etc., standards. And that could be anything from skills, like what are the skills required for our industry? What are the incentives that our trade association business members need to be able to, what are the tax reliefs, where are the innovation funds, where's the funding coming from? Could be anything. Membership bodies have this opportunity. It's tricky, it's complex, but actually those three things should be balanced out. And we think that membership organizations really at the heart of it, they sit in the middle of that sandwich. And all of those policies need to be pro-climate or 1.5 aligned.
Is there one area, is there one portion of that sandwich that you feel your experience is that gets the least attention? Like you look at these and you sort of open the hood of the association engine and see that this is the one that's been most neglected.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say neglected because it is complex. So what I would say off the bat is that it's not really happening very much yet anyway. So it's pretty minimal, and we expect more. So CAFA's doing a lot of work in the climate policy space, and we in particular I'm really excited to be working with a Race to Zero with a company called Influence Map, who do great research, and the We Mean Business Coalition, which is a global business support. We're all about actually the role and the influence that trade bodies, trade associations in particular, but I'm not discounting any other kind of membership organization, the role that they can play is so powerful when it comes to climate policy. So what area is neglected? I think a lot of membership bodies go, oh, we can't put a policy in place that says our members have to do this. Our members have to reduce that, Good
luck.
Yeah, you're mandating that. So there is that. And there's a real struggle. Now, I've come across a couple of membership organizations in the last week. I'm not going to name them because it might be still early days for them. One is actually putting in a code of practice, code of conduct, and policy in place by 2027 that they say that they're planning to mandate that their members need to have a net zero strategy, not to be net, but a plan in place to be moving in the right direction, to be proving that they are working on their emissions, to be a member of their organization. Now, that's the first. Now, we work with a lot of membership organizations, but they are the first one to actually be brave enough to say that. And they're in quite a random industry, actually, and one that's sort of borderlining on heavily emitting as well in the manufacturing sector. So that's really impressive. Yeah, really impressive.
I actually thought you were going to say they were going to offer some type of membership discount, or there was a reduced fee tier structure for those that do submit that type of plan, which I thought would be another interesting concept.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why not? Any incentives. And they're also focused on, and they're not the only one, and we're working with many to do this. They're also focused on, okay, so what are the skills our members need? What are the guidance our members need? What are the resources, etc.? And they're starting to already plan and build those out. But fundamentally, they're looking at, okay, what's coming down the line? What is the in order, and like many trade associations, their members are mainly small businesses, but they've got some big ones in there as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a small business in the manufacturing and engineering sector, what are the legislation and requirements coming down the line for our members to be able to be financially sustainable, economically, resilient, and being really well placed to be able to win business in the future? It is by being part of the bigger companies or bigger supply chain, they're going to need to be asked for this information, and it is coming down the line. They're going to need to be able to report on that in a really effective, clear way and provide evidence. So it's our job to help them think about how they're going to do that now, rather than wait 2 or 3 years down the line and panic mode, really cool. So it's like that, you asked me about the why earlier. That's a big why. It's like, the ultimate resilience of your members may be dependent on their ability to provide evidence that they're doing this in the future to win tenders, to procurement, etc. Also, credit scores and credit ratings. So if your small business members are looking to access finance in the future, there's a really good chance, in fact, in the next year or two, that they'll need to have some kind of ESG scoring or credit rating. I don't know if that's big in the US, but that's definitely evolving in the UK. So have been able to provide the evidence to banks, to funders, to whoever it is, they're going to need to be able to provide some kind of net zero or emissions report, etc. So there's another why. It is about being resilient, and that's the membership organization themselves falls into that category, but really importantly, their members.
I think all of these things are coming, and more that we haven't discussed or talked about that we don't know. It's just a matter of, it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when, and your industry partly will dictate when that happens, partly policy will breed into that. And those are kind of obviously intertwined. And I think today, Allison, we've set the record for links that we're going to need to post along with this article, because you have so many great references, and even some of those studies from the UK that may have not made it yet over the pond to the US that are coming. I think those would be helpful links that we should include in this as well, just to people to start educating them about it might not be here, but it might be happening somewhere else. And people really just need to keep their finger on the pulse of those that are doing it really well and spotlight that and know that they're just ahead of you, not necessarily just doing something different. There is an aspect of evolution that we need to watch. And so I've really enjoyed the conversation. Again, I'm really looking forward to including those links and continuing to educate people on what you do at CAPCA and B2B. And we could do a whole nother episode on just B2B, as we talked about. Maybe we should. And the benefits of organizations like that are doing great work for development and growth and associations, so that they can build all the non-dues revenue that it takes to do and sustain these programs. I do have the unfortunate task of wrapping us up, but I would love to hear, Allison, if there's somebody in your network that you think our audience would benefit from hearing from.
Yeah, I mean, I know so many amazing people who work in the membership sector. And so I would definitely recommend one of probably the most amazing membership marketing. So I'm stepping away from climate action here, but someone who's an amazing strategic marketer would definitely put forward him to talk to your network in the future. I talk about amazing ideas, very dynamic, thinks off the wall, definitely come up with some member recruitment and retention marketing strategies that may not have been aired before on your channel. So really excited.
We'd love to have that conversation. So thank you for the recommendation. Thank you again, Allison, for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
No problem, Lucas, anytime. And I could talk about CAFA and climate action for associations for days. So thanks for listening. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.